Have you ever noticed how silence can be louder than words? Most women think they need to talk, explain, chase, or prove something. But the truth is, there's a quiet force that works in ways you'd never expect, and it's one of the strongest psychological triggers in a man's mind. And in just a moment, I'm going to show you why silence has such a powerful effect on men. But first, I want you to think about this. Remember the times when you answered his texts right away. You kept the conversation alive. You showed interest. You made sure he knew you were available. And still, he pulled away. Now imagine the opposite. You don't text. You don't check his social media. You don't chase. Suddenly, his mind starts racing. Why isn't she reaching out? Did she move on? Is there someone else? That's the effect of silence. In a few minutes, I'll share a story about a woman who experienced exactly this. But before I do, let me break down the psychology behind it. When you stop chasing, his brain interprets it as a loss of control. Men are used to feeling like they set the pace when to call, when to show up, when to disappear. But when you pull away without explanation, he faces something he wasn't ready for: uncertainty. And uncertainty fuels desire. The less he knows, the more his imagination works against him. Every silent hour plants a seed of doubt. Did she forget me? Is she happier without me? Did I just lose my chance? But hold on in just a moment. I'll tell you the exact mistake women make when using silence, because yes, there's a fine line you don't want to cross. Emily was exhausted. She was always the one texting first. If James went quiet, she reached out. If he didn't reply, she sat there, waiting for a response that never came. Until one day, she decided to do something different. For an entire week, Emily didn't send a single text. She focused on herself, went out for brunch with her girlfriends, posted happy pictures on Instagram, no captions aimed at him, no hidden messages. And guess what? On day 5, James suddenly texted her, "You've been so quiet. Is everything okay?" That's the turning point. When you change the pattern, he feels the absence. And I'll tell you in just a moment what happened next with Emily, because James's reaction might surprise you. A lot of women believe they need to prove their worth. They think being more available makes them more valuable. But it's the exact opposite. Your worth shines when you show that you don't need anyone to complete you. Silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a bold message that screams, "I know my value. I don't beg for attention." And in just a bit, I'll show you the clear signs that he's already missing you, even if he doesn't say it out loud. The human mind hates a vacuum. When you don't respond, he fills the gap with imagination. And imagination is almost always more powerful than reality. He pictures you busy, smiling, moving on, and that creates his biggest fear, the fear of truly losing you. But listen, in just a moment, I'll reveal the biggest mistake women make when they try to use silence, and how it can backfire if you're not careful. Silence is a mirror. It forces him to look inward, and the more he feels your absence, the more value he places on your presence. Emily learned this, and when James came back, asking nervously why she had disappeared, she simply smiled and said, "I've just been busy living my best life." That's the invisible power of silence. And what happened next in Emily's story? The complete shift in how James treated her. I'll reveal in the next block. Emily's silence did something James didn't expect. At first, he thought it was just a phase. Maybe she was busy. Maybe she needed space. But the longer it lasted, the more it got under his skin. And in a moment, I'll tell you exactly what James ended up doing. But first, let's look at what usually happens in a man's mind when the woman he's used to hearing from suddenly goes quiet. When a man is used to your presence, he takes it for granted. He assumes your texts will come in. Your likes will show up on his posts. Your attention will always be there waiting. But when it stops, it triggers something powerful: awareness. Awareness that your attention isn't guaranteed. Awareness that he no longer has the same grip on your world. Awareness that maybe you're slipping away. And here's the fascinating part. The very moment you step back, he steps forward. But don't get me wrong, this doesn't happen instantly. At first, he may resist. He may pretend he doesn't notice. But the silence works like an echo. The longer it stretches, the louder it becomes in his mind. And soon enough, he can't ignore it. By day 7, Emily was fully focused on herself. She went to the gym, started reading again, even planned a small weekend trip with her cousin. Meanwhile, James's thoughts became restless. He checked her Instagram more often than he'd admit. He noticed her new picture, smiling, glowing, looking at peace. No caption for him, no mention of him, just her. And suddenly, James felt something he hadn't in a long time: jealousy. Because silence doesn't just create curiosity, it creates space for his fear to grow. Fear that someone else might be enjoying your smile. Fear that your attention has shifted. Fear that maybe, just maybe, you don't need him anymore. And in just a moment, I'll tell you exactly what James texted Emily after that post, because his words reveal something every woman needs to understand. There's a reason silence works so deeply on men. It's not about games. It's about balance. When you stop pouring all your energy into someone who isn't giving back, you shift the focus onto yourself. You glow differently. You attract differently. And he feels it. Men sense when a woman is no longer orbiting around them. It unsettles them. Because deep down, men crave to be chosen. But when that choice seems to vanish, it shakes them to the core. But here's the catch, and I'll explain this in just a moment. Silence is powerful only if it's paired with one crucial element. Miss that, and it won't work. On day 8, James finally caved. He sent Emily a message. "You seem different lately. Are you seeing someone?" Emily stared at the screen. For the first time in months, she wasn't anxious about what to say. She didn't rush. She simply replied hours later. "I've just been focusing on myself. Life's been really good." No anger, no bitterness, just peace. And that shook James even more than silence itself, because silence makes him miss you. But confidence in your silence, that makes him realize your worth. Here's the part most women overlook. Silence isn't just about ignoring. It's about living. If you're silent but miserable, he won't feel drawn back to you. But if you're silent and thriving, he'll notice. Emily didn't stay quiet to punish James. She stayed quiet to heal, to grow, to breathe again. And that's why it worked. Because silence without strength is just distance. But silence that's magnetic. By the time James realized what was happening, it wasn't just the silence that haunted him. It was the reality that Emily was finally living without needing him. That was the true turning point. The shift that made him look at her in a way he hadn't in months. And in the next block, I'll reveal how James's behavior changed completely, and how Emily responded in a way that every woman should learn from. James thought he had all the time in the world. He believed Emily would always be there, waiting, ready to answer, ready to give. But now, something was different. And I'll reveal in just a moment how James's actions completely shifted. But first, let's talk about the signs a man gives when silence starts to get to him. When silence begins to unsettle a man, his behavior changes in small but noticeable ways. He checks your social media more than usual. He starts liking old posts or watching your stories the moment they appear. He sends short, casual texts just to test if you'll respond. He suddenly brings up memories, reminding you of the good times. These aren't random. They're small attempts to pull you back into his orbit, because silence makes him realize something he never thought about before. You're not waiting around anymore. But here's the secret, and I'll explain it fully in a moment. The way you respond to these small signs is what decides whether he truly values you again or just drifts back temporarily. By week 2, Emily felt lighter. She wasn't glued to her phone anymore. She was spending time on herself, enjoying her hobbies, even joining a yoga class she'd been postponing for months. Meanwhile, James's behavior shifted. He began liking her pictures within minutes. He commented on one of her posts, "You look amazing," something he hadn't said in a long time. Emily noticed, but she didn't rush. She smiled to herself, knowing the silence was working. And in just a moment, I'll tell you how she responded to James's sudden extra attention, because her reaction made all the difference. At first, silence just makes him wonder, but when it lasts longer, curiosity turns into discomfort, and discomfort pushes him into action. Why? Because men often don't value consistency. They value scarcity. When something feels rare, they chase it. And when you stop pouring attention into him, your energy suddenly feels rare. That's when he moves. That's when he acts. But here's the twist, and I'll share it soon. Not every action he takes means he truly values you again. Some actions are just to soothe his ego. When James started showing up more, Emily didn't fall into the trap. She didn't send long messages explaining herself. She didn't ask, "Where have you been?" or "Why now?" Instead, she kept it short, calm. When he commented on her picture, she simply liked the comment, no desperate reply, no hidden meaning. When he sent her a casual, "Hey, what are you up to?" she didn't jump to answer right away. Hours later, she replied, "Just busy with a few things. It's been good." That was it. No chasing, no just peace. And here's why this worked. Because silence isn't only about what you don't say. It's about how you carry yourself when you finally do speak. Emily's energy was calm, centered, untouchable, and James could feel it. Most women make the mistake of They think if they just say the right thing, he'll understand. But the truth is, less is always more. When you stop filling the space with words, he's left with his own thoughts, and his thoughts will always chase the silence. Emily's brief replies sent a clear message. I'm no longer waiting for you. And that hit James harder than any long conversation ever could. By the end of week 2, James was no longer casual. He wasn't just liking posts or sending short texts. He wanted answers. He wanted to know where Emily stood. He wanted to know if she had truly moved on, because the silence and the calm confidence within it made him realize something he never thought he would. She was slipping out of his reach. And in the next block, I'll reveal how James finally broke and what Emily did next that completely flipped the dynamic in her favor. By week 3, the silence was no longer just an absence to James. It was a presence. It followed him into his days, into his nights, into every thought he tried to push away. He kept wondering, why isn't she reaching out? Who has her attention now? Did I lose her for good? And in just a moment, I'll show you exactly what James did when he finally broke. But first, let's talk about what makes men reach that breaking point. A man reaches his breaking point when 3 things collide. 1. Loss of certainty. The moment he realizes you're no longer predictable. 2. Fear of replacement. The thought that someone else might have your attention. 3. Loss of control when he no longer feels like the one deciding the pace. When these 3 hit at once, silence becomes unbearable. It forces him to face the truth. He is no longer the center of your world. And that truth is what makes him act. On a Friday night, James picked up his phone again, but this time it wasn't a casual hey or a like on Instagram. This time, he sent a long message. I don't know what's going on with you lately. You feel so distant. I just want to know, are we okay? Or have you moved on? For weeks, Emily had been calm, quiet, unshaken. But now, she held in her hands the message every woman eventually sees when silence has done its work. The message of a man who realizes he might have lost his place. And in just a moment, I'll reveal how Emily responded, because her reply is what determined everything that came next. Most women, in this moment, would have jumped. They'd answer immediately, pouring out emotions, explaining where they stand. But Emily did something different. She waited. She let the message sit. She went to sleep. She woke up the next morning, had her coffee, went to the gym. Only hours later did she reply, short, calm, steady. I've just been focusing on myself. I'm in a really good place right now. That was it. No anger, no accusations, just peace. And it drove James crazy. You see, silence is powerful, but silence combined with calm confidence, that's unstoppable. Emily wasn't trying to punish James. She wasn't playing games. She was simply living. And James could feel it. It wasn't just that she wasn't chasing him. It was that she no longer needed him. That realization broke something inside him, because for the first time in their story, he felt what she had felt all along, fear of losing someone you took for granted. From that moment on, James changed his approach completely. He began sending longer texts. He suggested meeting up, something he hadn't done in weeks. He asked more questions, showing genuine interest instead of casual small talk. And all of this happened because Emily didn't fill the silence with desperation. She filled it with her own life. That's what men can't resist: a woman who doesn't just wait, but grows. By the end of week 3, James wasn't the same man. He was no longer distant, no longer distracted. He was chasing. But here's the important truth, and I'll show you in the next block. Emily didn't just give in when he finally broke. She did something smarter, something that every woman needs to learn if she wants to keep the power in her own hands. Because silence doesn't just bring him back, it gives you the chance to decide if he's even worth letting back in. By week 3, the silence was no longer just an absence to James, it was a presence. It followed him into his days, into his nights, into every thought he tried to push away. He kept wondering, why isn't she reaching out? Who has her attention now? Did I lose her for good? And in just a moment, I'll show you exactly what James did when he finally broke. But first, let's talk about what makes men reach that breaking point. A man reaches his breaking point when 3 things collide. 1. Loss of certainty, the moment he realizes you're no longer predictable. 2. Fear of replacement, the thought that someone else might have your attention. 3. Loss of control, when he no longer feels like the one deciding the pace. When these 3 hit at once, silence becomes unbearable. It forces him to face the truth. He is no longer the center of your world. And that truth is what makes him act. On a Friday night, James picked up his phone again, but this time it wasn't a casual hey or a like on Instagram. This time, he sent a long message. I don't know what's going on with you lately. You feel so distant. I just want to know, are we okay? Or have you moved on? For weeks, Emily had been calm, quiet, unshaken. But now, she held in her hands the message every woman eventually sees when silence has done its work. The message of a man who realizes he might have lost his place. And in just a moment, I'll reveal how Emily responded, because her reply is what determined everything that came next. Most women, in this moment, would have jumped. They'd answer immediately, pouring out emotions, explaining where they stand. But Emily did something different. She waited. She let the message sit. She went to sleep. She woke up the next morning, had her coffee, went to the gym. Only hours later did she reply, short, calm, steady. I've just been focusing on myself. I'm in a really good place right now. That was it. No anger, no accusations, just peace. And it drove James crazy. You see, silence is powerful, but silence combined with calm confidence, that's unstoppable. Emily wasn't trying to punish James. She wasn't playing games. She was simply living. And James could feel it. It wasn't just that she wasn't chasing him. It was that she no longer needed him. That realization broke something inside him, because for the first time in their story, he felt what she had felt all along: fear of losing someone you took for granted. Silence brought James back, But here's the truth. No one talks about silence isn't about getting him to chase you. It's about discovering who you become when you stop chasing him. And in just a moment, I'll share with you the decision Emily made. The decision that turned her story into a lesson every woman needs to hear. Yes, James came back. He sent the long texts. He wanted to meet up. He showed effort again. But Emily realized something important. Silence didn't change who James was. It revealed who she had become. And that was the real victory. Because men don't always return because they've changed. Sometimes they return because your silence shook their comfort zone. And here's where women often make the mistake. They take his return as proof of love, when really it may only be proof of fear. When James asked to meet, Emily agreed, not out of desperation, not because she needed answers, but because she was curious to see what her silence had really taught him. At the cafe, James was nervous. He talked more than usual, trying to explain, trying to prove that he still cared. Emily listened, calm, confident, grounded. And when he finally said, "I don't want to lose you again," Emily smiled and replied, "The truth is, I never lost myself, and that's what matters most." That was the moment James realized he wasn't just facing the same Emily, he was facing a woman who had found her strength. Emily's story isn't about whether James came back or not. It's about the transformation that happened inside her. Silence taught her that she doesn't need to chase to be chosen. Her worth doesn't depend on his attention. Sometimes the person you really need to reconnect with is yourself. And maybe that's the message you need today, too. Because silence isn't about punishing him. It's about protecting your peace. It's about creating space for you to rise, to breathe, to heal, to remember who you are. Yes, James came back. Yes, he wanted another chance. But Emily knew something that changed everything. A man's return doesn't define your worth. Your growth does. She realized she didn't need validation from someone who once overlooked her. She already had everything she needed inside herself. And when you reach that point, when you can say "I am enough" without hesitation, that's when no silence feels heavy anymore. So let me leave you with this reflection. Silence may bring him back, but the real question is, when he does, will you even want him anymore? Emily's silence didn't just change James, it changed her. And maybe that's the journey you're on right now. Not just waiting for him to return, but waiting to meet the stronger, wiser version of yourself that's been there all along. Because the truth is, the greatest comeback isn't his, it's yours.